October 3rd, 1869. Deep inside a Swiss mountainside, a 2-meter steel blade spinning at 150 revolutions per minute snaps free. 12 men, Heinrich Schmidt among them, are torn apart in seconds. The steam engine built to slice through a mountain sliced through them instead. But this wasn't the first time it killed, and the men who designed it already knew. Subscribe, because this story only gets darker from here. In the spring of 1864, the Swiss Federal Council gave its approval for a project that promised to transform both a mountain and a nation's expectations of what machines could do. The plan called for a new kind of steam-powered engine, one that could cut directly through rock, timber, and anything else standing in the way of the St. Gallen-Toggenburg Railway. The men behind the machine were not local. James Miller, born in 1823 in Newcastle upon Tyne, brought years of experience with rotary steam engines from Britain's coal fields. Karl von Barton, born 1840, was the son of a German-Swiss family with a reputation for pushing engineering boundaries. Both men saw the mountain not as an obstacle, but as a challenge worthy of their ambitions. Government records from that year show the urgency. The railway was falling behind schedule, and the cost of manual tunneling was spiraling out of control. The council's mandate was clear: find a way to cut labor time and risk, or risk losing the entire project. Miller and Barton responded with a design that looked more like a weapon than a tool. A 30-horsepower double-acting steam engine, its boiler rated for 80 pounds per square inch, driving a 2-meter rotary steel blade. Their patent application, filed in late 1864, described a device that could chew through a meter of granite every hour, powered by a steady diet of coal and human vigilance. On April 12, 1865, the first test took place at the tunnel's eastern mouth. The air was sharp and cold, the ground still frozen from a long winter. Miller stood by the controls, Barton watching the pressure gauge as steam hissed and gears locked into place. The blade spun up to 150 revolutions per minute, sending chips of rock and wood flying. For a moment, it seemed as if the machine would deliver exactly what the politicians had ordered. But even in that first hour, the men on the ground felt the risk. The engine's roar drowned out warnings, and the exposed blade left no room for error. The promise of progress came with a cost that was already waiting to be paid. On June 21st, 1866, the tunnel site fell silent for the first time since work began. The steam engine's boiler, pushed to its limits, ruptured without warning. Johann Keller, a foreman from Altstetten, was standing less than 3 meters away. The blast of scalding steam and shrapnel left no chance for rescue. His death was recorded in the mining journal and in the hospital log at St. Gallen, where the entry reads simply, Keller Johann, age 34, deceased. Cause, crush injury, steam piston. The men who had worked beside him saw the ground stained with oil and blood, the promise of progress shattered in an instant. The following year, on September 8, 1867, Marie Fisher brought lunch to her father, a brickmaker stationed at the tunnel mouth. She was only 16. As the rotary blade spun up to speed, a misaligned timber kicked loose. The blade caught it, sending a splintered beam across the worksite. Marie's left arm was severed at the elbow. She survived, but the hospital admission record notes, amputation required, permanent disability. Her father never returned to the tunnel after that day. By late 1867, rumors of the machine's dangers spread beyond the valley. Mining journal entries grew darker, listing injuries by name, date, and wound. The hospital in St. Gallen filled with men burned, blinded, or missing fingers. In early 1868, the Federal Council ordered a halt to all tunneling operations. The shutdown lasted 3 months. Official records cite unacceptable risk to personnel. Unfinished rock walls echoed with the memory of Keller and Fisher, and the promise of mechanical salvation now carried the weight of every injury logged in the company ledger. Each accident forced engineers and politicians to confront a question that had no easy answer. How many lives could be spent to clear a mountain? A double-acting steam engine, rated at 30 horsepower, drove the operation. Its horizontal fire tube boiler, holding steady at 80 psi, demanded constant attention. Each morning, before dawn, the firemen shoveled 12 kilograms of coal into the firebox. The water tank, 150 liters, had to be topped off, every joint checked for leaks. Oil cans sat on a battered bench, each crankshaft bearing receiving 10 milliliters, measured with the precision of a surgeon. The engine's rhythm never faltered. At full pressure, the rotary blade, a 2-meter disc of high-carbon steel, spun at 150 revolutions per minute. Its sharpened teeth, nearly 2 meters in length, sliced through rock and timber, clearing 1.8 cubic meters every hour. The noise was relentless, a metallic scream, the thump of pistons, the hiss of steam. The crew ran on routine and trust. 2 men at the controls, one on the throttle and feed lever, the other watching the pressure gauge and governor. Shifts rotated every 3 hours. The senior mechanic checked blade alignment twice a day. The firemen's work never paused. Coal added hourly, soot blown from tubes each afternoon, water levels checked and rechecked. Any drop in pressure or odd vibration meant an immediate stop and a scramble to inspect gears or steam lines. The maintenance register, kept beside the engine house, recorded every adjustment, governor tension, gear backlash, blade runout. On cold mornings, coaxing the boiler to working temperature took 45 minutes, faces already streaked with sweat and coal dust by the time the engine roared to life. Safety depended on a mechanical governor, a spinning weight linked to a spring-loaded cam ready to lock the crankshaft if pressure crept above 85 psi. The governor's set screw was checked at every shift, tolerance plus or minus 0.2 psi. The machine demanded vigilance. The workshop logs, numbers, pressures, times, tell of a system that gave nothing for free and took everything the crew could give. On the night of October 3rd, 1869, the mountain at Wolfenstein was slick with rain, the air thick with coal smoke and nerves. The crew had worked past sunset, driving the Miller-Barton steam saw up a temporary timber track built at a 2.8% grade, a slope steep enough to demand respect from even the most seasoned firemen. At the controls stood Heinrich Schmid, 31 years old, sleeves rolled, eyes locked on the pressure gauge. The blade spun at 150 revolutions per minute, a blur of steel and heat. Every man on the crew knew the risk. They had seen blades warp, teeth snap, gears shudder under the strain. But tonight, the engine sounded true, until it didn't. At 8:47 p.m., a vibration rattled through the carriage. Witnesses later described a metallic shriek, sharper than anything they had heard before. The blade, 2 meters wide, sheared clean through its mounting bolts. Freed from the shaft, it whipped sideways, slicing through the timber frame. In the chaos, Schmid lunged for the brake lever, but the runaway carriage had already begun its slide. The gradient turned gravity into an enemy. The saw, now a dead weight, dragged the entire assembly down the track. Sparks flew as iron wheels struck loose stones. Workers shouted warnings, but the noise drowned them out. The carriage picked up speed, slamming into a stationary supply wagon waiting at the next bend. The impact tore the rotary engine from its moorings, hurling steel and timber across the worksite. Schmid was pinned beneath the wreckage, his final moments recorded only in the accident log. Schmid, Heinrich, fireman, deceased. 12 men died that night. The official report listed causes: blunt trauma, laceration, crushing injuries. The numbers told only part of the story. Survivors spoke of bodies thrown from the carriage, of the saw blade embedded in the embankment, still humming with residual heat. The timber track, meant to be temporary, had become a trap. No one at Wolfenstein would forget the sound of steel failing under pressure, or the sight of a machine built for progress turned into an instrument of disaster. By dawn, the site was cordoned off. Investigators measured the slope, cataloged the debris, and counted the dead. The rotary saw era ended in a tangle of broken machinery and shattered lives. The mountain was quieter, but the cost of that silence was written in the names etched into the hospital ledger and the memory of every man who had worked the night shift. Every modern tunnel, every high-speed line, owes its existence to workers who faced unforgiving machines for daily wages. Today, automation promises safety, but human risk never disappears, only shifts. Progress demands a price. The only question? Who pays it next? Share your thoughts in the comments below.